Hi submarine friends. So I'm still working on the steering system for the submarine while I wait for parts again. So anyways, this right here is the hydraulic motor that runs the rudder. So it's actually direct drive. This shaft has a key, or the output shaft has a keyway in it, which matches into the keyway on the vertical rudder shaft. I don't have the rudder welded on yet because it doesn't fit in my shop. But anyways, so when this turns, it directly turns the rudder. There's no gear reduction in there. So I have to be very careful with the size of hydraulic pump that I put on this motor. Now this is a very low speed motor, but I fear it's still too fast. So what I'm doing, I'm experimenting with a 12-volt hydraulic pump that I have on my homemade press here. I just took the lines off and connected it to my pump. Now the battery is a little low, so it's struggling a bit, but unfortunately, you can see, I think that's a bit too fast. So what I need to do is, I need to find the specs for this pump and make sure that the pump I get is much slower. I suppose I could bypass some of the oil. That would slow it down. But I don't really like that idea. So this is going to be tricky to find the right pump for this. Or I have to put a gear reduction unit in this. Or I have to abandon the hydraulic motor to drive the rudder and go with a cylinder. But what I like about this is it sits inside that tail cone. There's nothing hanging out of the submarine to cause drag. It's very clean. It looks really good. So I'd really like to stick with this. Maybe I can find a lower speed motor as well. I'm just gonna have to do a little investigation and experimenting. The other idea that I had was to take a small bore hydraulic cylinder, double acting, and I could manually push the rod back and forth, which would send oil in both directions to this motor. So I could take like the steering cylinder out of the boat that was given to me, and I could manually move that rod back and forth. But then you'd have a problem if you had air bubbles in the system, and you'd have to figure out a way to bleed that off, so that's tricky. But then you'd have manual steering, which I really like, and it would be a tiller type of steering, which I really like too. Yeah, lots to figure out here. I mean, it would be different if you just weren't concerned at all with the cost of things and you could just spend whatever you wanted. I'm not in that boat. I mean, I can afford to do this, but one of my goals in doing this was to use what I have instead of spending a bunch of money. I already have one submarine, so I don't want to spend a fortune on a second submarine. So this is what I'm up against. Any suggestions are helpful. Ciao.